My poor woman, but my richest treasure. Sheikh Hamdan Diary Poetry. I was born among palaces, between walls carved with gold, surrounded by oceans of wealth. But still, my heart was poor. I had the world's finest horses, but no one to ride beside me. I had endless nights under the Dubai moon, but no eyes to share the stars with me. They called me a prince, a poet of the desert, a man of power, but they never knew how lonely a throne can feel when your soul sits empty. I prayed to Allah, not for more gold, not for another crown, but for one heart that would love me not for my name, but for the man I hide behind it. Gentle pause, and then she came, not with perfume or pearls, not with royal grace or diamond smile. She came barefoot, her dress torn, her eyes tired. But when she looked at me, my world became new. Her hands were rough, but they carried kindness. Her words were simple, but they healed what years of luxury could not. She was poor, but her soul was the richest I had ever seen. Deep breath tone. I remember that evening. The sandstorm had just passed, and I was standing by the sea, watching the waves chase my thoughts away. She walked past me silently, her basket half empty, but her smile full of peace. I asked her name. She looked down shy and whispered, "I am nobody, my lord." Nobody. Yet in that moment, I felt like I had met everybody I was searching for. She did not bow. She did not flatter. She did not care who I was, and that's what made me fall. Soft poetic rhythm. She spoke of her mother who sold flowers, of nights with no bread, of prayers whispered on rooftops, where the stars were their only light. And I listened, not as a sheikh, not as a prince, but as a man, finally hearing the sound of truth. She told me, "Richness is not what fills your hands, it's what fills your heart." And I smiled, because that night, she filled mine. Gentle pause, emotional tone. She never asked for anything. Not gold, not gifts, not fame. She only asked one thing. "Remember me in your prayers, even if your world forgets mine." And I promised I would. I would remember her. In every verse I write, in every breath I take, in every silent prayer before dawn. For in her poverty, I found my peace. In her simplicity, I found my truth. And in her heart, I found the treasure that all my wealth could never buy. The awakening of love. Days turned into weeks. And yet, her face never left my mind. In every crowd, I searched for those quiet eyes, the ones that spoke without words. I began visiting the same shore again, hoping she would appear, like a forgotten prayer answered twice. Sometimes she did, sometimes she didn't, but her absence felt like a presence too. Even the sea began to whisper her name. I had met women of elegance, of beauty sculpted by art, of charm designed for courts and cameras, but none could silence the noise inside me the way she did, just by being herself. Her poverty didn't shame me. It humbled me. Her simplicity didn't distance me. It drew me closer. For in her silence, I heard my purpose. Deep emotional tone. I once believed love was a luxury, something beautiful but fleeting. But she made me see that love was not a crown. It was a prayer. And those who love in silence, love with purity. She didn't know the world was watching me, or that every step I took echoed in the whispers of palaces. To her, I was just a man, tired, lonely, searching for something beyond gold. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, I asked her softly, "Do you ever dream?" She smiled. "Dreams are for people who sleep in peace," she said. I stay awake, counting the stars Allah has given, and thanking Him for every one. Gentle pause, poetic rhythm. Her faith broke me. Her gratitude silenced me. How could someone with so little carry a heart so vast? I thought I was rich. But that night, I realized she was the queen, and I, merely her student. Soft prayer tone. I looked up at the sky and whispered, Ya Allah, if love is a test, then let me be patient. If love is a gift, then let me protect it. And if love is written, then let her be the one you wrote for me. Voice low, emotional. I wanted to tell her that she had already conquered me, not with beauty, but with belief, not with charm, but with peace. But how could I say it? A prince and a poor woman, two worlds that never meet, two prayers from different heavens. And yet, my heart, stubborn, royal, restless, refused to forget her. Slow rhythm. That night I wrote, She walks with nothing, yet carries the universe in her eyes. She owns no crown, yet rules my heart in silence. Every poem I wrote after that bore her shadow. Every word, her fragrance. Every sigh, her name. Gentle fade tone. I did not fall in love with her beauty. I fell in love with her truth. And that truth became the richest treasure of my life. Dizzy, the confession that never spoke. Days grew quiet, yet my heart grew louder. Her silence had begun to live in me, like a rhythm I could not unhear. I started writing more than ever, but every poem ended the same way. With her. Her face. Her name. Her unseen smile hidden behind her humility. Pause, slow breath. I told myself, She is just a passerby, a humble soul who crossed your path. But my heart whispered otherwise. She is your destiny, disguised as simplicity. One evening, I saw her again near the old market. The sun was soft. The air smelled of dust and jasmine. She was feeding stray cats, her hands trembling slightly, as if life had taught them both love and hunger. I stood there, a prince afraid to speak, not because I lacked courage, but because I feared my words might break the fragile peace around her. Emotional pause. How could I tell her that a man who could own the world felt unworthy of her world? How could I tell her that my palace felt colder than her broken home of kindness? I took a step forward, and she looked up. Our eyes met. The whole market fell silent. Peace be upon you, I said. Her lips curved slightly. And upon you, my lord. Gentle tone. I wanted to say more, but words are poor servants of the heart. So I stood still, letting silence speak for me. She noticed I was holding a small book. My diary. The one that carried her name on every page. She asked softly, Do you write stories, my lord? Yes, I replied. But lately, I write prayers disguised as poetry. She smiled, not understanding fully. Yet her eyes glowed as if she knew that every prayer was about her. Slow poetic rhythm. I asked, What do you pray for? She said, Peace. Not gold, not fame, not love, just peace. And I realized that's what she was. Peace. Wrapped in pain. Grace hidden in poverty. Light walking in shadows. Deeper tone. That night, I returned to my room and wrote in my diary, She knows not what she means to me. She walks unaware, while my heart kneels in her path. I wanted to tell her everything that she had become. The reason my horses waited longer in the stable. The reason my prayers grew softer. The reason I had learned humility again. But love, when true, does not rush. It waits. It prays. It breathes quietly in the corners of patience. Pause, soft ending tone. So I kept my secret, hiding it behind royal smiles and silent nights. For sometimes, the most powerful confession is the one that never speaks, but still reaches the soul it belongs to. Dizzy, the prayer that became love. Soft, reflective tone. The more I tried to forget her, the more I remembered her. Like a verse I could not stop reciting, even when silence begged me to rest. She was in my mornings, in the smell of rain over sand, in the call to prayer echoing through the minarets. Even my dreams had learned her name. Pause, slow breath. I began to see her everywhere. In the patience of the poor, in the laughter of children, in the eyes of those who carried nothing, but still shined with gratitude. She had awakened something in me. Not love alone, but faith renewed. I started praying again, not as a prince demanding from Allah, but as a servant, thanking him for letting me feel this pure love, even if I could never have it. Soft rhythm. Each night I stood on my balcony, watching the moon rise above the palace walls, the same moon that watched over her tiny home. And I whispered, Ya Allah, if this love is meant to end in distance, then let my heart still be thankful for the chance to know her. I did not ask for her hand. I asked for her peace. For love is not always about possession. Sometimes it is about protection. Deep, emotional tone. One evening, I saw her again, carrying a basket of dates. She offered me one, saying gently, My lord, taste what is sweet, before life turns bitter. I smiled, but inside, her words became a storm. How could someone who owned so little still speak with such wisdom? I asked. Do you ever wish for more? She looked at the sky and said, I only wish that Allah never tests me with too much. Her humility struck me harder than all the riches of my world. She was a mirror, reflecting what I had forgotten. Soft poetic flow. In that moment, I knew this was no ordinary meeting. This was divine timing. A test, a sign, a message wrapped in a woman's soul. I wanted to protect her, to lift her from the dust, to place her where she belonged, among stars, not streets. But I also feared that my world might destroy hers. So I prayed again. Ya Allah, if she is my destiny, let her heart recognize mine. If not, then keep her safe, even if it means far from me. Pause, whisper tone. That night, the wind blew stronger than ever, as if carrying my prayer to her doorstep. And I felt peace, not because I owned her, but because I had surrendered her to the one who owned us both. Emotional fade out. That was the night. My love stopped being a desire and became a prayer. The night I realized true love doesn't ask, it submits. Dizzy, the test of destiny. Soft, reflective tone. There comes a time in every heart's journey when love must walk through the fire of destiny, not to burn, but to prove its truth. I thought my prayers would protect her, that my silence was enough. But Allah, the knower of hearts, decided to test mine. Pause, slow breath. News reached me one morning that her village was struggling. The rains had stopped. The wells had dried. Hunger had arrived quietly, like an unwelcome guest. I sent help anonymously, gold, food, and water. But she refused it. The messenger returned and said, She said, tell the Sheikh, I do not take what is not earned. Allah feeds whom he wills. Emotional tone. That one sentence shook every wall of my palace. Because she, the poor woman, had a dignity that even kings forget. I went to see her, not as a prince, but as a man desperate to understand. When I arrived, She was kneeling beside a small child, feeding him half of her bread, keeping the other half for someone unseen. I said softly, "You give away what little you have." She smiled and replied, "My lord, it's not mine to keep. Blessings grow only when shared." Gentle poetic rhythm. That moment, something inside me shattered, and something greater was born. I realized she wasn't poor because of her life. She was rich because of her heart. I wanted to tell her that she was my answer, my treasure, my miracle dressed in rags. But destiny always has its way. Soft pause. A storm struck that night, the kind that steals both roofs and rest. I sent guards to protect her home, but by the time they arrived, she was gone. The wind carried her name, but no one knew where. The villagers said, "She left before dawn." Said Allah had called her to another place. Deep emotional tone. I searched for her. Every desert, every village, every whisper. But sometimes, the ones we love the most are meant to stay only as prayers, not as people. In her absence, I found my faith. In her silence, I found my surrender. Soft poetic close. I wrote in my diary that night, "She came to teach me what love means, and left before I could say thank you." My poor woman, but my richest treasure. Not because she stayed, but because she changed me forever. Dizzy, the letter she left behind. Soft reflective tone. Weeks passed like shadows moving over sand. Every dawn carried her name. Every sunset whispered her goodbye. The palace was full, but I felt empty. What good is gold when the heart lives in dust? Gentle pause. One morning, a little boy arrived at the palace gate, barefoot, frightened, carrying something wrapped in a torn cloth. He said, "She told me to give this to the Sheikh if she never returned." My hands trembled as I opened it. A folded letter, written in a trembling hand, and a small white flower, dried, yet still fragrant. Soft emotional voice. The letter began, "My lord, if these words reach you, then know that I am far, but my prayers are still near. You once asked me if I dream. I never told you. My dream was to see a man who could love beyond the walls of gold. And I did." I stopped reading. My heart was louder than the words. Tears blurred the ink, but I read on. "Do not search for me. I am where Allah wanted me to be. You have your world, and I have my peace. You gave me kindness without pride, and I gave you prayers without voice. That is enough." Soft pause. At the end of the letter she wrote, "If one day you look at the stars, and they seem brighter than before, know that I am smiling from between them." I pressed the letter to my heart. For the first time in years, I felt both broken and healed. Slow poetic rhythm. She was gone, but she had left me a gift. A truth wrapped in farewell. Love was not meant to be owned, but to be honored. And she had become the poem Allah wrote inside my soul. I placed her letter inside my diary, between the pages of my poetry, and whispered, "My poor woman, you were never poor. You were the richest dream I ever lived." Soft closing tone. And from that night on, whenever I wrote, I began each poem with her name, and ended it with her prayer. Dizzy, the soul she left within me. Soft tone. After she left, the world did not end, but something inside me did, and something greater was born. I stopped chasing glory. I stopped counting gold. For what use are treasures if your heart cannot feel their weight? Slow rhythm. Every night, I walked through the palace halls, and her voice followed. Not her words, but the silence she left behind. A silence that taught me peace. I began to pray not as a prince, but as a man who finally understood that every soul is poor until it learns to love selflessly. Gentle pause. Her letter became my Quran of love, a reminder that purity is wealth and simplicity is beauty. People still saw me as Sheikh, as poet, as leader, but I no longer wore my crown with pride. I wore it with prayer, because somewhere in a forgotten village, a poor woman had taught a prince the meaning of humility. Deep emotional tone. They asked me, "My lord, why do you no longer ride a power?" I smiled and said, "Because I've seen something stronger. A heart that gives without asking. A love that lives without needing." I built schools for the poor in her memory, water wells in her village, and gardens where once there was dust. But I never put my name on them. I only wrote one word: peace. Soft poetic rhythm. Sometimes I see her in dreams, standing near a river of light, her eyes calm, her smile unchanged. She says nothing, but her silence speaks more than all the poets of the world combined. And when I wake, the dawn feels softer, the wind feels kinder, and my soul feels hers. Reflective tone. She once said, "Richness is not what fills your hands, but what fills your heart." Now I finally understand, for she left nothing behind, yet gave me everything. Soft close fade tone. So if one day the world asks who she was, I will say, she was the woman who owned nothing, but taught a prince how to love everything. Dizzy, her name written in my prayers. Soft tone, heartfelt narration. Tonight I write her name again, not on paper, but on the walls of my heart. Years have passed, and kingdoms have changed, but her simplicity still rules me. She never wore a crown, yet she sits on the throne of my soul. Gentle rhythm. Every dawn that touches my window whispers her peace into my chest. The world calls me Sheikh, but I am just her student, learning how to love in silence. I built palaces, but she built prayers. I ruled lands, but she ruled my heart. Soft pause. They call her poor, because she owned no jewels. But I call her rich, because she gave me the one treasure money could never buy: a soul that believes. When she left, I thought I lost her, but now I see she only moved into a place where no pain can reach her. Slow emotional tone. At times, when I walk alone under the desert stars, I feel her presence in the wind. Soft, calm, pure, like a prayer returning to heaven. And I whisper, "My love, my teacher, the world still doesn't understand how a poor woman became the wealth of a prince." Deep pause. I once wrote poems to impress the world. Now I write only to thank her. Her silence became my music. Her tears became my ocean. Her goodbye became my eternity. Royal yet emotional tone. They say princes love with pride, but I loved her with surrender. For the first time in my life, I bowed not to a crown, but to a heart. She taught me that every human soul is made of the same dust, and that true greatness is not in palaces, but in kindness. Calm background tone. I remember the last thing she said. "Don't cry when I leave. Just promise me you'll love the world as I loved you, without expecting anything back." And I promised. Now, every child I help, every smile I create, every tear I wipe, is my way of keeping that promise. Soft closing, spiritual tone. So when I kneel to pray, I do not ask for power anymore. I ask for peace. The peace she carried inside her soul. If the heavens ever allow, I would give away every jewel, every title, every land, just to hear her voice once more say my name. Whisper tone. "My Sheikh." That's all. That's enough. Emotional final lines. Now the world calls me blessed. But only I know the truth. Blessings are not in gold, but in love remembered. She was my poor woman, yet she remains my richest treasure. Dizzy,